All right, we are live. What's up, guys? Welcome to week 3 of the Menopause Mindset Shift. Today's topic is so important. Maybe my favorite. And if we get to it, I could share why it's my favorite. But give yourself some damn grace, please. Not just grace, damn grace. Like there's a punctuation, accentuation there. I want you to understand. Because look, like so many times I have women come to me and they're carrying the weight of the world. Their parents are getting older, their kids are going off to college, less dependent on them. They work a job they don't like, they're having marital issues. They have all these things happening. They're losing friends. And oh, by the way, they're dealing with this like completely shift of their body's chemistry, of their body's metabolism, digestion, elimination, and all of these things happening simultaneously. And yet they feel this pressure as if they're not doing enough. Like they aren't good enough. They don't feel good enough for themselves, good enough for their spouses. They're not wearing the clothes they want to wear. And it's just there's just so much that is happening simultaneously. And the reality is like the answer isn't just like I don't like don't get me wrong here. I'm not just saying like, oh, just hug yourself and do what you want to do. No, for sure hug yourself, for sure give yourself grace and do what you can to move the needle forward, prioritizing your health, right? It has to be both. And I think so many women fall under either category of like, you know, kind of like just, I don't want to say victim mentality, but like just not like just sulking in the issue, or the issues, right? Which sometimes, man, depending on the level of trauma, like, gosh, how could you not if you are just there by yourself, right? Like, it's easy for that to happen. I can understand that. But in other words, like just feeling bad about where they're at and then having shame about where they're at, which I talk a lot about this with my hypnosis clients, but I oftentimes refer to the levels of consciousness. This was created by Dr. Hawkins. The very, 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 very bottom is shame and apathy. The very top is joy and love. And so what happens is the more you're oscillating in the lower consciousness emotions, the less energy you have, the less sort of like the more you're sort of focusing on the negative because your system is perceiving some sort of internal threat and it's harder to ever get out of that. So like I'm not suggesting to just be sad about everything, you know, and I also am not suggesting that you need to tackle the world and be on point with everything and you shouldn't feel sad about anything. I'm not suggesting that either. And that's the problem we live in this society. It seems to be the dichotomy of this or that in all things. But the reality is the truth generally always lives in the middle. And so you absolutely have to acknowledge if you're going through this life change, your body is changing. Whatever's worked up to this point will not work to the same extent that it once did. That's just the reality. Now, that's not to say you can't feel sexy, you can't wear the clothes you want to wear, can't feel good about yourself. No, that we have proven that. I've proven that over the last 20 years. That is more than possible. And you're all actually a lot closer than you think. That is, so that's not it. It's just that, yeah, there's a lot of changes happening, right? And a lot of women internalize those changes because they identify with the byproduct of those changes. In other words, I'm gaining weight, therefore, like I'm lazy, or what I'm doing is not working, or I'm not doing enough. That's a big one. I'm not doing enough, you know? And really, my program, especially like the exercise element and nutrition element, has evolved significantly from a very pragmatic standpoint of like, what's the least you have to do to get the best possible result? I've always been interested and fascinated by efficiency, but in working with so many people over 40, and now myself, I'm 39, I recognize that with age, less is more, not just because of time, right? I always thought that as a younger man, like that's the key is less time. And that's a part of it. Because if you do something that requires less time, it's more likely going to fit into your life. You're more likely going to do it over a longer period of time. You're more likely going to get the results you want to see. But what I've realized, particularly with the exercise and dieting element of it all, is as we age, less is more because your system can't handle more. I mentioned all of those things at the front of the talk that could be going on in your life right now. And maybe none of those things, but just menopause, that's enough, right? It's a lot of change happening, right? Well, that's a lot of internal stress. And by the way, menopause by itself creates internal stress. Like, think back to puberty, right? What that was like hormonally, right? What that was like physically. Your teeth are growing, or maybe younger, your teeth, it would be more of your teeth. But even that, like my daughter lost her tooth. She had adult teeth growing in. Like, there is pain there. There's growth happening. There's pain with growth, right? There's the physical stress of the pain there. Well, when you're going through menopause, there's growth happening. It might not feel like, and you might be saying, yeah, around my waistline. It's not what I'm referring to. But your body's just changing. It's morphing. And because of that, there's physical stressors, there's mental emotional stress from that alone. Then you have all the other things in your life creating stress. Well, yeah, like dieting's a horrible idea. Don't diet. And yes, working out every day and working out super intense, not recommended. I can guarantee you, you are breaking down muscle and you're probably holding on to fat. And if you haven't yet, you're going to start experiencing chronic pain and potential injury. That's just what will happen. That might be, and so like that's where I say less is more, right? So that's a reality of what is going on with this. We have to find the optimal amount, but feeling like you're not doing enough seems to be the thing that so many women struggle with, or just feel overwhelmed, not knowing where to get started. And so I apologize for jumping around in tangents here because there's so many things that go into this particular topic of grace. And then, of course, the more broader topic of menopause. But we'll do our best to stay on target for you. Um, so when I say give yourself grace, I look at it as you have to take action. So a few minutes ago, I mentioned the levels of consciousness. Well, right above pride is courage. So like pride would be constituted, defined as a lower level of consciousness. So it's like pride, anger, fear, anxiety, sadness, guilt, shame, apathy, and all like that's like it descending down. But then as you look up to like neutrality, there's courage. Then above courage, willingness and acceptance, and it goes all the way up to joy, right? So, but the courage is the interesting thing because when I hear people, like so many people will say like, I don't have time. Uh, you know, I, I don't know what to do. So many things like that come from of a lack, but really like what it takes to actually move up the level of consciousness to give you more energy to help you feel better is just courage. And you might say, well, I don't have that. I'm very anxious. Well, that doesn't mean you don't have courage, right? And so all courage is just the willingness, to be open to take a step in a direction that's uncomfortable. So if you do have a lot of anxiety, or if you are really overweight, or if you don't know what to do, it's like, well, what is one small thing you can do to help yourself feel better, right? And putting yourself out there in that way. Maybe it's reaching out to a coach. It's starting small group training. It's doing introductory hypnosis. It's, I don't know, going to a exercise class, like whatever that is for you. It's a little bit of courage. Maybe it's journaling, just journaling, writing down your thoughts. That's so hard for so many women. Like the number one thing I hear from women before starting hypnosis with me is like, I'm afraid of what I might say. But my answer to them is like, you should be afraid if you don't say it, because that's not like in hypnosis, I have people, I do what's called age regression. And so we want to go back to the time where the original micro or macro sort of trauma started, that then therefore set in motion all these negative behaviors thereafter, or manifestations, I should say. And oftentimes that's through childhood. And women are able to recall things they haven't thought about their entire life, that they forgot about, yet it was in them. And it was in them, and it was driving them to do things and keep them stuck. Like, so do things that were basically producing some sort of negative pattern. And therefore, no matter what external patterns, whatever program they did outside of themselves, like diet, exercise, whatever else, happy, geographic, like where they lived, what they did for work, they never felt good about themselves because the inside was never healed, right? But the point is that that lives in you. So like, it's like the equivalent of, I always use this example. Like, imagine if you had a really bad cut on your leg and you're like, I don't have insurance and I hate the hospital. I am not going. It's like, cool. Like, you can choose not to do that. But if you don't do anything, what will happen? Well, that cut will then get infected, then it will spread, and then more immediate action will be required. And it will get worse and worse the longer you don't do anything. And that's the exact same thing when it comes to internal micro or macro trauma. It just gets worse. And people say, don't open Pandora's box, but that's a very, I believe, ignorant, sort of limited belief, because if you don't, then you're just trying to either run away from the problem or not think about the problem. That's literally doesn't work. It never has worked. Now, again, by the way, that is why so many women start to feel levels of anxiety heightened from before, or depression when hitting menopause, because there's a lifetime of unresolved emotion coming to the surface at the time where they feel worse about themselves, where life gets really hard. And that's where things feel like they can't be managed. So going back to grace, it's like, look, like, you got to give yourself the permission, the love. This is a part of grace, by the way. It's not just like acceptance of you at your best and you at your worst, or you at where you're at right now, which, by the way, like, that is what love is. Love is unconditional, right? So you don't love your kids when they're listening to you, and hate them when they're not. You love them no matter what. Like, as much of a little shit as my son or daughter can be at times, I love those two things more, two things, those two little humans more than anything on this earth. And it's not even close. Like, there's just the amount of love for them is just undeniable. And they're kids. They're not obviously perfect behave. Like, nobody is, right? Especially kids. I'm sure you feel the same with your kids and other people in your life. And so, like, that's unconditional love, but yet so many women don't direct that at themselves. So you gotta, like, yeah, you might feel like you're overweight, you might not feel good energy, you might feel feelings of depressed. I'm not going to say you are depressed, because I know you're not. You might just feel like that. There's a difference. And whatever else. But if it doesn't start with internal love, which is grace is internal love, vice versa, like, that's what it is, then you're gonna get pushed down lower into that consciousness level, right? Of the sadness, the apathy, the guilt, shame, all of that, judgment. And so, again, at the very top of it is love. So the best way to strive towards that is directed inward, right? Like, just think about it. Like, imagine, you know, you have a teenage daughter, and she looks at herself. She's like, oh, you're fat. Oh, you're ugly. How would that make you feel as a parent? Now, think about how you talk to yourself. So you're going to be preaching to your son or daughter how they should act, how you would want them to act anyway, to have self-love, but you're not practicing it yourself. I don't say that to create shame, because you shouldn't feel shame. It's just like, oh, geez, okay, I haven't thought of it that way. What can I do to get better? That's the whole point of what I'm talking about, is like, grace is like not putting yourself down. It's understanding you're a messy human going through challenges. And it's also, what can I do about it? Like, because that is grace. That is self-love. It's like, I don't need to be perfect, but I can do something, right? You can't have self-love and disempower yourself at the same time. It doesn't work like that. And so many people are like, well, that's just how I am. Now is not a good time, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, okay, well, you're just you're basically disempowering yourself. And that's a real problem. And literally, like, our society. Our society is not built for empowerment. It's just not, which sounds crazy, because you think meritocracy and the American way, whatever the American dream is, whatever that is anymore. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But what I do know, the idea behind it early on was freedom. And the only way to have freedom of yourself is to give yourself permission to make mistakes. And when you do make mistakes, not to hate yourself for it. So I want to leave you with this. And there might be some loops here that I didn't close. And if so, comment below. But I'll just keep talking forever and you'll get really bored. So I want to leave you with something actionable. And so this is something I tell all my small group training clients, and really anybody who I get the chance to work with the physical or the internal through hypnosis, which is, you have to look in the mirror and treat yourself and look at yourself like someone you love, who you want to win. Just think about, like, before you even look in the mirror and try to attempt that, just think about it. Like, do this thought experiment. if you were to think about someone who you love who's going through a tough time, potentially one of your peers, and they were putting themselves down and talking and limiting their, like, putting limits on themselves, and or just being like completely apathetic of like, "Oh, there's nothing I can do," you know? Like, how would you treat that person? Would you be like, "Yeah, you're right, you suck. Oh, goodness, yeah, you shouldn't, literally should wear a mask." Like, you would never say that, would you? Right? You wouldn't. How would you treat that person? How would you treat the person who you love, who you want to win? Like, literally, like, the thought experiment is literally answer that question, write it down, say it out loud. You don't have to get into specifics, but how would you treat that person? If they made a mistake, would you tell them how bad they suck and how they should just stop? How nothing's ever going to work for them? If they're talking about how miserable and upset and sad they are, and they're like, but now is not a good time to get started, would you be like, yeah, you're right. You should probably wait 6 months because that sounds really fucking good. Like, it sounds really fucking good for you to put yourself down every day, feel like shit, have no energy, and hate yourself. Great. Keep doing that for 6 months. What? No. You'd be like, okay, what can you do to get started? What's one thing you can do? Right. So when you start treating yourself like this, it takes time, but little by little, there's a shift that's going to happen. And I end all of my hypnosis sessions with this. Depending on what that person has going on in their life, I want them, I give them a moment where there's no talking for them to have their hands on their heart and just express grace and love to themselves for all that they have done up to this point. Because, yeah, you might be like, yeah, nothing's worked. It's like, well, that's not true, right? Like, something has worked a little bit, right? What was it? But either still, like, that's not the point. The point is like, you put yourself in there, right? The man in the arena. Have you heard that Eleanor Roosevelt quote? Let me read it for you really quick. I have it on my wall. The man in the arena is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how strong man stumbles, or where the doer or deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust, sweat, and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasm, who has great devotion, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. That's powerful. And that's, sorry, Theodore Roosevelt. I don't know why I said Eleanor Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt. Eleanor Roosevelt has a lot of good quotes too. But think about that. Like, you're the woman in the arena right now. Like, who gives a fuck about all the people online who's saying whatever? And you're like, oh, they're doing so well. You don't know that. Trust me. If someone's talking about how good they're doing and they're never bringing up anything bad, they're full of shit. Trust me. I know a lot of people. I've worked with a lot of people, the richest, the poorest, everywhere in between, the fittest, the thinnest, the fattest, the smallest, like, you name it, all the extremes you could ever think of. And everybody has their own internal struggle, and myself included, right? Like, it is part of the game. Oh, well. So let the judgment be not on what other people think, what the scoreboard necessarily says in terms of weight. Let it reflect your scoreboard. What are your efforts? What are your habits? Who are you yesterday? Who are you today? Where are you striving towards? Yeah, you messed up. It's not working. Okay, but at least you tried. And that's nothing to sell yourself short. So 2 action steps I will reiterate, and then I will hop off. Number 1 is treat yourself like the person who you love, who you want to win. Remember that. The more you remember that, the less bad self-talk you'll have, the more positive self-talk you have, and that will have a profound effect on what you do or don't do and how closely you hit your goals. The second thing is that whatever it means to you to take that action forward, do it, and recognize likely things aren't going to go exactly how you want them to. It's not going to happen. But rather than judge yourself in that moment, look for where the improvement could be. All right. And then keep going forward. Just the one small action you can do. Anything above nothing is something. It's called progress. Just focus on that. All right. Much love. Comment below. Let me know what resonated, what didn't resonate, what questions you have, what loops I didn't close. And see you next time.